All right, Solar Mike. So are you selling all PPAs these days?
Only PPAs. Yep.
You gotta
It's
love
the
it.
best deal in town.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So
Actually,
uh,
I can sell a PPA through
okay.
Sonova. Do you have the same option right now?
Yes, I can sell Sonova and I've sold many PPAs over. Yeah, I've
And
sold
you've done
many.
it through Sonova?
I've done Sonova on a couple different stints actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got certified to sell Sonova, but I haven't done one.
Okay.
So since I joined Power in April, I've been waiting because I only sold PPAs before. So that's all I knew. And I thought, well, I'm going to need the option to sell a PPA, even though I don't think that's ever the right call. And I haven't run into it yet. There's never been a situation where the PPA is better for my customer.
What about a
So,
retire? What about when someone's retired?
so that's what I hear too. So it's like, well, when someone's retired, why is the PPA better? What's the argument there?
The argument
Is
is
it
they can't take advantage of the tax credit. So if they
okay?
go with the
So
PPA,
that's
they can
right.
get, yeah.
But what do you get with the PPA? So let's say you do a loan with no tax credit.
Yeah.
Why is the PPA better in that case? Would be my question.
Well,
Because even without the tax credit, you still, if you get into a PPA, you still have this chunk of payments
right.
that you have to pay out. You've not added anything to the appraisal value of the home, and you have a percentage of buyers that have a very negative opinion of the PPA.
Yeah.
So if you talk to realtors, they actually have buyers that won't get into a PPA, or would prefer not to. So that they can't get the tax credit argument, to me, doesn't stack. I don't see it as, when we sell financing or a loan, the tax credit isn't like the best part about it. It's a cool part, but you still have adding value to the home. You still have ownership of it. You still sell your house with that added value. So the payout amounts on a PPA are much higher than the loan payout amounts. And you actually own something if you pay it out on the loan. The one thing I didn't like about the PPA was the ending. I always thought that was funky. It's like no PPA that's ever been sold has ended yet, right? So we
That
haven't
is
dealt with
so.
that issue yet.
That is
So
so.
I'd have the customers would be like, well, what happens at the end of the 25 years? And
Well,
I'm
I'll tell you what
thinking,
I
well,
think. I'll tell you what I used to tell my customers. I used to sell,
yeah,
I started with Sunrun and I sold that pretty much, like I would say my first few years, even when I had loan and cash options, I was probably 80-90% PPAs.
same.
And this is what I used to tell customers. They would have the standard three options. And of course, one of them was the market value. You can buy it at market value, which no one ever knows what the hell that means. But this is what I would tell customers, that if I was the PPA company, this is what I would do. I would call you in year 16 or 17, or maybe in year 20 and say, you've been a great customer for us, and your PPA, your term is coming to an end. Now, we could, do something, add filler, say something scary to the customer, or we could put new panels on your house, you sign a new PPA, and I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to try to re-up all these customers.
Oh, for sure.
Redo the roof at that time, because it's been 20 years, and I think that's going to be what happens.
I do too. I think that's the play, and that's fine. It's the one thing about selling PPAs in San Diego was it was cheaper than SDG&E.
Yeah.
Like, for sure. And so you have people now. I've heard you can sell a PPA now at 35 cents at Sunrun, or somewhere in the 30s.
Wow.
That's like an option in the system. Like, you can sell someone at 35 cents. I don't know what it is. I just heard it went up, which is, it's astronomical, the total payout amount. If you do something like that to a customer, then they turn around and they discover that they paid triple what they would on a loan on a 25-year payout. you've just created, not only like, are you not building your referral business out, you've created like a negative barrier to your own growth.
I'm waiting for
So
the
that's
lights
what,
to start flashing because I think Sunrun or one of these big companies is to come shut us down for you saying this right
no,
now.
no, 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 no. I mean, no, but it's one of the reasons why I'm so happy with what I do now, is because when I help a customer now and they're educated and they see what I've done for them,
Yeah.
then it automatically turns into more business for me. And I'm, I did fine selling PPAs as a career and, money wise, but it was always a reset button. You couldn't expand your business as easily as I can now, because, people would kind of see what's going on when they learn more about the PPA, even if it's after the fact. And so,
That I'm gonna
um,
interrupt you there if you don't mind. That
yeah,
is the same experience I had, which was simple as this. This is the scenario, and anybody who listens to this and watches this is what you have to be aware of if you're going to sell a PPA. You come in, you offer your PPA, you're going to pitch it like it's the best thing in the world. Then Solar Mike comes in, he's going to offer his great loan, and he's going to say, well, you're going to all the things you said, you're going to have these incentives, you're going to get the ownership, you're going to have the resale value. And they're going to look at the first guy who sold the PPAs like he like withheld information from me. Like that.
mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that turned me completely away from PPAs. I didn't want to be the guy withholding information. I didn't want to be the person who was like ever accused of something like that.
And it wasn't in bad faith.
Right.
It's just that it comes across as, when you sell a PPA, you're typically selling it as like, hey, let's see if you qualify. This isn't really buying anything. You're just replacing your utility bill. So
Right.
it's sold as like this isn't a financial instrument. This is just your new utility. Well, the truth is, you just locked them into $150,000 payoff amount that's due over 25 years. And we make it sound like that's not happening. And then they find out that is happening, and it creates a problem. Now, the other thing I noticed when I was selling PPAs is that scenario you describe. You offer this to someone, and then they get another proposal, and then the PPA is always uninvited. So you're the first party to leave. So I always found when I'd sell PPAs, the customer would ghost me or tell me they want to cancel, and then they go on to get solar, and I'm left out of like that competitive where they have 3 solar companies they're looking at. And I found that like I never got educated on what those other guys were even doing.
Okay.
I actually felt, once I started selling at Power, I learned quite a bit. Like I realized how much I didn't know, because when you're selling PPAs, it's like you are dismissed pretty quickly, or the customer doesn't find out about financing. And you don't really learn about that other side of solar, which is kind of the way most people want to do it. So yeah, it's been really interesting. But I would think the biggest thing is, when you get the right financing and the right equipment for people, they don't cancel, and then they do refer their friends, and it's just easier to build off.
It's interesting you mentioned not canceling. Do you think there is a direct correlation that more cancellations happen on PPA or lease customers than with finance or cash customers?
Oh, I've seen the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The PPA cancellation rate is over 50% on average, if you were to average it all together.
That's very interesting.
Which is interesting that a company or a person will offer something that gets canceled. That, I mean, imagine having like a store where your product is brought back over half the time. Like something's wrong with your product.
Right.
No product that gets returned over 50% of the time is in good shape. Like something's wrong with it.
I'll tell you.
And the response from the solar company is, oh, you're just pitching it wrong. You're not building enough rapport with the customer. Not true. They're actually just finding something better and telling you to never come back.
Right.
That's what's happening.
So,
but the cancellation rate, with a loan, you probably know too, because you've been doing
but,
a financing. It's really low. Like something weird has to happen.
but going back to your other point, I'm very curious. So in your before you were with Power and you, let's say, understood the totality of the solar options and you could really, break it down and figure out what's best, what was like, what were you taught as a solar consultant? Like, what were the things you were taught? How were you taught to sell compared?
I yeah.
How is it? Yeah. How is that? And how is it different than what you're being taught, what you know now?
Well, I didn't know the totality.
Yes.
So I am I've learned that on my own, and that's why I am where I am now.
Yeah.
Um really when I joined Power, I met with the person that I signed up with. It was actually Kiara. People know Kiara on Instagram. But I said, look, here's what I offer people. Show me what Power offers them. So I just said, like, let's look at a side by side. What does the customer get? What do I get? And then show me the back end, how you install this thing and how clean that is.
Right.
And that's where it started, where I was like, holy cow, I couldn't believe the difference. And I'm looking at this is what I used to give customers, this is what I can give them now. And it just, honestly, it just cracked. Like my mind cracked. I couldn't even believe it. And then it's been a whole ride ever since, because now it's a whole different experience when I meet with people, and I'm doing it virtually now, and that's different too. But like the way I can approach them, as knowing that I have what I have and knowing what everybody else is offering, it's a really smooth experience for me.
It sounds like the veil was lifted. You
The
had
veil was lifted.
that aha moment, the light came down on you.
Yeah. And I maybe that, I should have known that much sooner, I think. But typically a company that's selling PPAs will train that way. And to sell PPAs, honestly, you actually need to be a little bit in the dark. You need your PPA. I shouldn't say that. You need your PPA salesman to be a little ignorant to the other ways.
But that was how you were trained, though.
That's what I'm saying, is like, if they would have trained me what financing looks like, what that offer really looks like for customers, then I wouldn't have been able to do what I did, which is sell a lot of PPAs. I would have seen it much sooner.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's not bad. It's just look, that's just one. Like, these solar companies have many different channels. It's not like one company only does PPAs and they only do, this one does cash and this one does loan. They all do all of them.
Yeah.
And the direct to home division of most solar companies, so the door knocking division, is going to focus on a lease or a PPA, because that's where we can exercise the most profit out of that marketing tactic. So the marketing tactic of door knocking and PPAs,
you also say the least
they
amount
sort
of
of go
training
together.
too. The least, like the most sales for the least amount of training. Would that be an accurate way to put it?
Yeah.
Because I think it takes less training to sell a PPA.
It absolutely does.
Yeah. I mean, the pitch I was taught was kind of what you said. You're just switching from your utility to solar, kind of like if you're switching from one cable provider to another. There's no, and the pitch was, there's no equipment costs, no installation costs. We'll just come in and put those panels up, and then a few months later, you're going to be saving money on your electric bill. That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then they tuck the old, here's the payment schedule and how much you actually pay out in the full 25 years way at the back of that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So it is pretty simple to train, because that's a pretty easy pitch. And the documents are all designed to be, really easy to go through. I mean, in a way it is simple, and it is like a utility swap. So it's not that deceiving.
Right.
But the reason it becomes, I guess you would say, more difficult to sell a loan is because you don't hide behind the fact that you're you're getting into a large investment here.
Mm.
It's like no one buys a car. No car salesman's like, hey, you don't, like, no one avoids the loan question. Like that, you're borrowing money and you can't avoid that when you're selling a loan. And so some people might find it easier to not have to say, hey, customer, you're about to borrow 80 grand, but they all know that there's a big cost to it. And so I find it easier to just be, you're being honest and open and upfront. So I wouldn't say it's harder. I'd say it's easier. It's just a little, you do have to talk about finances in a more detailed way.
I want to go more into how you were actually taught sales, like some of the techniques you were taught early on, and if you're still doing those or what's changed with those techniques.
So the typical door, yeah. So direct to home, and I think a lot of this is similar. So it's funny. I'll hear pitches from other solar companies. I mean, I have 3 solar companies a month knock on my door because I don't have solar. Hi.
Okay.
Because I moved to San Diego like a year ago. We're still renting, and yeah. So I
I know a
get
good
door
solar
knockers.
guy in San Diego. I'll hook you up with him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so as they come to my door, I hear their pitches, and they're all the same thing, right? It's like what we were saying. And then the idea is to come into the home and get the document signed and schedule that site survey, and then just kind of move it through. But okay, so this is a true story. So my first I joined Sunrun, and then I'm kind of a nerd, so I always thought Zoom was good. Like it just
Okay.
made sense. There's all these documents, you're looking at a proposal. There's like, in my mind from the beginning, I thought like, well, there's all these cool things I could show them on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm in their house with an iPad, it's like, hey, and then if I need to make a change to the proposal, it's clunky.
Yeah.
And so my very first close, okay, was the guy wanted to meet on Zoom. And so I said, okay, let's do Zoom. And my trainer was like, Zoom's not great. And so I was intimidated and told by everyone like, hey, Zoom is like a lesser form of selling. The close rate's not going to be as good because you can't go in their home and basically not leave till they sign. That's like how you're trained, basically.
Yeah.
And I get on with this guy, and he's a former, this is true, he's a former private investigator that worked on like fraud. And he looks at this PPA agreement and he's like, can you give me a copy of this? This looks fishy. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm going to jail on my first deal, my first Zoom
Yeah. Yeah.
try. And like, this guy's like, send that to me. This thing
That's
looks weird. I want
hilarious.
to take a look at it. And I was like, oh, I'm never doing Zoom again. That was weird and freaky. And I'm just going to go do what I'm told. And this was in COVID too. Like now that COVID's like, I guess not over, but like everybody's been on Zoom. The big fear that I was told is like, hey, don't do Zoom a lot because you're going to get people that are older that have never been on Zoom. I had a call today in Florida with a couple that's not younger than 80, and they had zero problem. There was no issue. Like everybody can get on Zoom. Everybody's done it.
That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah. So the in-home high pressure thing, the like the high intensity, like, hey, let's see how many deals we can close this week sort of environment. I think it's funny because all these people come into solar and they come into an environment like that, this like rah, let's get as many as we can, let's make as much as we can. But I don't think the majority of them like that environment. It's like what I found is like behind the scenes, if you go in the corner and talk, it's like, man, I really wish I could make this good for my customers. Like people want to do and be in this industry. They want to do it the right way because most people want to be super honest and upfront and give the best thing and be fair to customers. And so, I was finally exposed to a place where I could do that. And now it's really different. So now it's, do you want to talk about how I do it now versus that?
Yeah, I would love to hear
Yeah.
that.
So, instead of, instead of, I'm actually going to pull something up on my end because I just put something together on this. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to take a look at it.
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah. So instead of like in home, I said in a recent meeting, like even if my neighbor want to do it or my mom, I would get on Zoom, because what happens on Zoom is it turns into a consultation where I used to like prepare the proposal and get all the slides together and then get the design together. And I had no intention of changing that when I got in the house, because I was going to be like in front of them. And it was like, here's the thing I have for you to sign. Let's sign it. Now, when I get on, it's like, hey, let's get on Google Earth. Let's like take a tour of your house. Let's talk about like your roof and this vent over here and this electrical box, and like, any detail that matters at all. We start to break it down, and it becomes this like back and forth, like, hey, what's best for my house conversation.
Yeah.
So even though I have a slide deck, right? And it's like, I should follow these slides quickly. I'm trying to create just a conversation that's like, what is it with your house? How much power do you use? Like, I see an AC out here. Like, how much do you use that? Do you want to use it more?
Mm,
I think if people want to really get good at selling on Zoom, get good at the first 10 minutes, not being you talking. Like, start a conversation about it. What do you know about solar? Do you know anybody that's gone solar? And get things sort of flowing both directions. If you're talking on Zoom and it's quiet, like, you're doing it wrong on a home proposal, on a homeowner proposal.
I think that's great advice. But why do you think? I think that's common sense to a certain extent,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people are very quick to want to jump into that proposal and want to show the numbers and do their presentation. So what do you think for the solar consultant who has that, they feel that urgency to like, I need to quickly get into it. Like, how can they slow down? How can they,
Yeah.
what do they need to do?
So even not in the proposal, if they go into a slide deck, if
Yeah.
you're even like, if you're stepping through like you're doing something scripted, you're going to lose probably to the person that's more comfortably like adapting to what you say. So in that first 10 minutes, you're trying to find out like what matters to them. Every person's really different in what they know about solar and what they've been through in the last 2 weeks before talking to you. They might have met with 3 other companies.
Okay.
I mean, you'll have people say like, look, I know we're paying cash and I've had 3 proposals. Try to beat this price. And you're like, well, shit. Like, you just go to the proposal and like pull it up and be like, did I win? So don't bore them with like a slide deck. Find out early who you're dealing with, and then adapt to it. And it's all like, what can you do to get them to the important part, which is talk about money. Like, that's how are you going to pay for this? And that's what I'm saying. I'm sort of checking boxes in my head as I'm talking to them. And some people will just fly right to that because they're like, we know everything. We have solar on another house. We just kind of want to see what equipment and what price you have. And it's like, great. If you're the one that just gets what they're saying, goes right to what they want, they'll like you, and you're probably going to win that deal.
That's good advice.
Does that make sense? Yeah. I think it takes a lot of practice. One of the hard things about getting good on Zoom is reps. Like, so door knocking, one of the great things about it is like you can practice for free. It's free practice all the time. Just go knock a door. So everybody can get their like door pitch down because it's free practice. Pitching to a homeowner, unfortunately, in this business, no one hands that to you.
Yeah.
So you almost have to you have to earn reps of solar sales, and they're worth a ton.
Yeah.
Because like a pitch to a homeowner is worth a lot. That's why I like knocking doors. Everybody should do it if you don't know solar very well, because it's an easy, free way to get in reps selling. Like,
Okay.
how else are you going to pitch to someone? You're going to go buy leads. That has a huge cost. You're going to give a referral. If you're new, you probably shouldn't sell that. You should probably like tag me and let me sell it, and then we'll share it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, they're valuable. If you get an opportunity, you don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And I was pretty lucky when I came in early on. I was hooked to a campaign that had a ton of appointments, and I was able to do a lot of reps on Zoom. But I think some people that don't have that opportunity, like, you just need to practice. Like, create a fake Zoom, create a fake customer, learn all the techie stuff. Like, get the tools like the mic and the camera, but learn switching, the browsers and sharing the screen and just all the buttons you're going to need to click. You can do that without a homeowner. I'm surprised sometimes to see salespeople that come to a Zoom meeting and they're unprepared, like they don't know what to click. Like, you can do all that before. You can learn all that stuff on your own and prep for it. So yeah, you can't like always, it's expensive to meet with a homeowner. That has a cost, but you can kind of fake it. I did a lot of like fake meetings, just like pretending the homeowner's there and just doing my pitch. And
It's
anyway,
like they used to
practice is
say,
good.
do your pitch in the mirror and see, so you
Yeah.
get used to the repetitions. But I mean, in Zoom too, you can see yourself. So it's kind of like doing it in the mirror if you did a Zoom call and no one else was on it.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So I used to connect my phone. So I'd have my phone in my meeting and I could look at my phone to see what my customer would be looking at.
Oh, that's a great piece of advice. Yeah.
And so
I love
even if it's like the way are you sharing your browser a certain way, and like the dimensions of that and how that shows up on an iPhone. So when someone's on their phone and you're presenting to them, we'll shift the resolution of your browser so it's skinnier and like match to what kind of screen they're on. There's stuff like that you can just think about because you've practiced before, and you're just trying to make the experience that the customer's having better than everyone else. Yeah. That's the goal, is like when they get on with you, they're like, okay, like that was so easy to talk to him. I feel like he knew what we needed. And then even if you're not the best price, we'll be like, well, he seems like the one that could manage our project better or whatever.
Yeah.
But being prepared, all that kind of matters, I think. I mean, you just imagine being on the Zoom call yourself, and that can get you through it.
Yeah.
As far as like,
yeah,
one of the things that you're trained to do, there was this thing in the PPA world, the door knocking world, called same days. Same days, like
same day close.
Same day close. Yeah. And that was like, it always baffled me. It was like something that they cheered.
Yeah.
Like, I got a same day close. Remember that?
Yep.
Why was that good? What did
I actually remember being in a training once, and one of the persons there who was a salesman. This was a training. I can say the name. It was when I used to sell SunPower, and SunPower would have these big regional trainings, and they would invite the sales managers and sort of like these high level trainings that they would have. And I was in a meeting, and one of the trainers for one of these companies said, he goes, "Oh, my guys, everything's same day close. If they don't close it that day, it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next." And I remember being in the meeting, and I was a bit in shock because I actually felt like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Because like, we're not focused on same day closes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what goes back to that, what I was saying, which is like the room, you might, if you're training that and you get these people saying like, yeah, let's go same day. The majority of those people do not want to pressure customers.
Yeah.
And they don't need to. So on Zoom, I've had to find a good flow for like, okay, well, how many times do I want to meet with the customer? Because I don't want to be the salesperson that just says like, here's the info, call me if you want to sign it. No, that's not the way to do sales. So it's something where you do need to decide like, how, what's the process for getting this customer to the next step. It's not, and same day Zooms, I've had those. It's like if you meet with someone and everything's perfect and they're ready to go, then you go.
Yeah.
Typically, I would say 1 out of 5 sign on the first call because everything's set. It's typically someone that knows what solar is all about. They've done it before. They've met with other companies, or it's just a referral, or just a really warm lead, I guess you'd call it. But the majority is like, here's what it is. Okay, we're going to think about it. Oh, we need to go get a roof quote. Oh, we need to change the design. And so I would say the majority of my installs come from maybe probably 2 to 3 Zoom calls. A change design,
yeah,
a roofing quote, or they just want to get some more proposals and they just don't want to sign yet. I just don't think I have completely switched off the pressure to sign thing. You can't catch me saying like, well, let's sign now and then you can get the site survey and then like you can cancel later, or like, let's sign now and then we'll see if this is right. If it's not, go ahead and cancel. I don't talk like that anymore, because why? Okay.
Were you trained to talk like that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. How
How did that make
that's
you
how
feel though
you,
when you did that?
I mean, honestly, it felt like I'd never been in sales. I'd
Yeah.
never been in sales before this. And I thought, oh, this is just the way we do it.
Okay.
But I would say I didn't leave houses without signatures.
Okay.
I mean, it would be really rare if like when I was an in-home PPA salesman that if I sat down with you, you're going to sign, because we have like tactics to like, you kind of just climb down the ladder. Like, well, you're really just signing to get the site survey, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which you just don't need to do when you're doing it the way we're doing it now.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So what is your actual follow-up? Your typical follow-up are you asking for an appointment a few days later, or how are you handling it?
Yeah. Honestly, Calendly, what's better than like Calendly?
Yeah.
Just here's my calendar. You pick a time. So I will usually try to, as I go through the solo proposal, right? We come to the financing, everything looks good, we sign it and we move on. Let's do the site survey. If we need some more time for whatever reason, then hopefully you can predict how much time that is. Roofing quote sometimes is like hard to nab, so I give myself a couple days on that one.
Okay.
But yes, just set the next appointment in that meeting. And if it's open-ended, then I usually just send my Calendly link out and say, just pick a time that works for you.
Okay.
And I don't chase customers really. I don't like,
Do you
if they
find
don't,
when you send that Calendly link, am I
it's
saying
the
it right?
worst word. It's the
Calendly?
worst. Rebrand already. Calendly with an
Yeah.
LY. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Okay. However you say that word.
Some other company needs to buy them and destroy that word.
Yeah. So,
It's terrible.
but you find customers are relatively responsive to that. And if for people who don't know, can you just describe what Calendly is and how that works?
Yeah, it's a way to click and schedule. So it gives you access to whoever's calendar you're clicking, and then you pick a time and it automatically sets it up and blocks it out for you. Um, I just try to, I just, I guess I did it so much that I really don't like chasing people down.
Yeah.
Because when you're door knocking, like you have an area, right? So you go to this area, and let's say you go down a street where you've met with 3 people and they've told you no, and they're not, some people aren't good at saying no, right? So they're like, they're too nice or whatever. Like they don't want to reject you.
Yeah.
And so you go back to their house and you like, you try to hound people, and you think that's what sales is. You're like, I'm doing my job, which is like, this person keeps like ghosting me, and I'm going to keep going back there to their house, like knock on their door. I just,
Mhm.
if I just can't imagine a salesperson like continually knocking on my door trying to get me to buy solar.
Yeah.
But I used to do that.
Yeah.
You just keep going back. And so I was like, man, this is not the way I want to do it. And so it's like, hey, if you want me, here's my calendar. Um, I understand that a lot of people, when they're not interested, they won't reject you. They'd rather just kind of have you disappear. And so I respect that.
Yeah. I hope and wish it's not going to happen that every door knocker out there would hear what you just said, because I think it will improve their lives, improve the lives for a lot of people. But
Yeah. So
we can
I'm
only hope.
still a door knocker. Let's talk about that. So I still knock doors
Okay.
sometimes.
Okay.
Um, and so with all this being said, like how do I approach the door knocking? Because I still have people on my team. We're setting up a bunch of door knockers in Houston this week. But that's a good place to knock doors right now.
Okay.
Um, but so when I go out, I just say like, look, it's like, why don't you have it? Do you want to talk about it? I'm Mike with Power.
Yeah.
Have you looked into it? It's nothing weird. And then if there's any interest at all, I don't go in a house. I don't even engage that much. I just say, look, I do Zoom meetings. I'm interested in doing a 10-minute Zoom call with you just to pull up your house and see what you could save.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, let's get on my calendar. If not, have a nice day. So door knocking for me is really just appointment setting for my Zoom.
Mhm.
Um, which is a really nice, like, there is no pressure.
Yeah.
Even if the customer like wants solar right then, that's not how I'm out there.
Right.
I'm really out there just making cold calls saying like, if you're interested, then you got to do it my way, which is on Zoom.
Right. I like that because it's a very low pressure situation. It's just like, well, let me get some information together to make sure this can work. So let's schedule something.
Totally. It's super
Yeah.
low pressure for
Yeah.
both of us. Like I don't want to pretend like I'm looking at this house and I know what to do, right? Like I like to go back and really dig into it, look at their bill, and like really spend some time on it before I'm ready to say like, I got someone to sign same day. Look,
Yeah.
they got 10 killies.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. I'm reminiscing on that whole world of, that same day close. And um, I mentioned it. There was a company, one of the companies that actually trained me is from San Diego. And they were called One Roof Energy. And they had their trainers come out to Massachusetts. And they had this guy, he was like, at the time, I felt he was the most knowledgeable solar person in the world. This is probably like 2012 or so. And I remember him talking about, okay, same day closes. You got to, and I remember being in the room with all the other people learning about that. And it just, it just felt like, to me, I never saw myself as a salesy type of person. And I never saw myself as, like you said, I didn't want to put pressure on people. My mindset was, this is what we have. I think it's pretty good. I think it's going to be good for you in your home. But if you agree, if you like it, then you can get this thing. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
And I also realized that people would be in a different stage of their buying patterns too. Because I am an extremely analytical person. And I've
Same.
learned to not be too overly analytical. But, a lot of people, they're buying, I heard this great story. This guy's buying a digital camera back in the day when digital cameras were before everyone had good cell phones, right? So he's going on vacation and he goes, okay, I'm going to research digital cameras. And he gets it down to these two final choices. And they both have the megapixels, they both have the zoom, they have the battery, they got the carrying case. And about a week before, he's in the store about a week before the vacation. And these two are very similar, about $50 in price and difference. So probably several $100s for the camera. And he just can't pull the trigger. Can't pull the trigger. He goes on vacation. What did you do? What did you do on your vacation? Oh, I just got one of those disposable cameras. So wait a minute. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. You wanted to get the best possible camera so you could have these quality photos so you can remember this vacation forever with your family. But because you couldn't decide between two cameras, you ended up just doing it. And when you actually break that down, it's a very illogical way of thinking, which is kind of interesting because I thought of this when you were saying people just want to go directly into the presentation. I think sometimes if you're an analytical person, even doing a solar presentation, you feel like, okay, this is the right way to do it. I got to start with this slide to go to the next slide. I got to say everything in order so I'm doing it correctly. And that's the way the analytical person thinks. And if you're the seller or you're the buyer, so from the buyer's point of view, some buyers, they want to see, they're like, have you ever had a buyer pull up a spreadsheet on you of like your company comparing? I
love
love
it.
that.
Dude, I love it. Well, I have spreadsheets ready to go. Yeah. I mean, I hope I get a left brainer and we just go deep into spreadsheets. That's what I want.
Yeah. And I think I'm the same way too, because I'm so analytical, but I think there's that whole other side of it, which is the human side. But I think there's two sides. You have to know your buyers, what it comes down to.
So that you're exactly right. So bringing back the same day thing all the way to like this left brain, like spreadsheet person. There are people that you should do a same day because there's nothing else to do. That's what they want. They know how they want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they sign? There's nothing else to even do. So,
right.
And then there's the people that want to completely, I mean, I have one customer that we met on Zoom at least 10 times before he signed.
Yeah.
But that's just what it took because it was like, now I found this in the contract. Can we get on and talk about this? And I was happy to do that. So it comes back to like when you're training a bunch of people, you have to have something that fits like all of them. You can't, when you have these people come in to sell solar with no background in sales even, and you have to hand them all something that's universally applicable to all of them. It becomes, to those that are more expert at it, it becomes a little like, it's a little hard to look at. That's why I think a lot of people bounce around in solar. And that's why I think a lot of people end up in power because there's this feeling of independence here.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no one's telling me or giving me any structure to how I do my job.
Yeah.
When all the structures at the other companies are based on people that have been there a week. So the structure, you're telling someone that's been in solar for 2 years that they should do the activities the same as someone that's been there 1 week. Well, that really bothers people because they're more advanced. They're ready for more things. But that solar company has to keep it at that sort of like kindergarten level all the time.
Yeah.
Or in power, it's like you can go to advanced, it's all over the board. There's stuff for new people and you can go to what you want.
Yeah. It's
that's why if you notice, you in power, it's not like there isn't new people in power, but there's a lot of people that have been in solar for a long time, like yourself,
Yeah.
that really have no place going to these other solar companies. There's no other place that you'll feel more at home.
Right.
Because of that fact that like it's dumbed down for everybody.
Right. Because what would the option be for someone like you and me? What are the other options on the table? You know, they could be, you could start your own sales organization, have to recruit people, have to figure out, have all those systems, right?
Yeah. What are the options? Let's figure it out.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's do it. Should we start our own solar company?
okay, so if we start our own solar company, Mike, what do we need? We need to have proposal
We need to
software.
have
We're going to use Aurora. We're going to use
we're going to
SolarGraph,
use, no,
Solo.
it doesn't matter. We just need to make some killer TikTok videos.
Just,
That's all we need.
that's all we need. Okay.
That's
You got
all
that
we have to
down. You
worry
got that
about.
down.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah. That's
But
a good
yeah,
one.
you'd have to I don't know. I mean, yeah, you'd have to find an EPC. Like you need it installed. Should we get
Yeah.
some trucks and get an installer? I know a guy. So power is just there'd be a lot of math to do to see if there was a better way to do it. But I like I feel like I'm just getting good at what I do, which is like sales. I was telling my wife today, because I had 2 calls today with customers, and I came out of those calls with like uniquely high energy.
Hmm.
Like my wife was like, dude, what's wrong with you? Because I was just so amped. And I said to her, like, that's what I like. Like when a sales call goes well, and I can tell the homeowner is pumped. Right now, that's what's giving me the most energy.
Hmm.
I don't, and so I'm really liking that. And I'm trying to leverage as much into that, because that's where I'm trying to like put all my energy, because that's where it is right now. When sales sort of isn't my passion, that actually, like, I'm enjoying mastering that, sales portion with the homeowner. There will be a time in the future where, I'm more passionate about just my team and more marketing. Like the stuff I do on Instagram, that's sort of like step one. Like I should be doing YouTube and all these other things. And I will, like, there will be times where like my passion will shift into different areas. But yeah, I feel like I'm just starting and I'm still like excited about sales.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the
I
things
don't want to start a solar company yet.
one of the things
Maybe
that
next year.
power allows, though, it allows you to have that focus. If you were trying to
Yeah.
start your own solar company, you would have 100 different tasks and responsibilities in your mind to put that all together. Power provides a platform where a lot of that back end, most of the back end is actually taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that I don't think the average person out there understands, especially in solar, how much back end work is involved in every single solar project. I would say there's 100 tasks for every single project. And the install itself has 100 components. And if any one of those tasks aren't done right, if any one of those components are missing, or they don't have it on the truck or whatnot, it causes an issue. So there's a lot involved to doing solar. So to be able to get yourself into a position where you could actually focus, like you said, and master sales and run the company at the same time and be independent, I think that's actually a very unique position, that even if you are what's called a red line, which I'll explain what a red line is for people who aren't aware. A red line is kind of like you said, I'm going to sell, but I'm going to find a company nearby who's going to do the installs and help me with the proposals and provide the financing for me. Even if you're working with a typical red line, it's still quite a bit of work, I found, that you're following up with that company, you're making sure that the communications between the homeowner are done. There's almost no visibility.
Right.
That's one thing no one talks about, is the visibility. Let's say you sell 10 jobs and you give them to a red line, you're sitting there a month later like, oh, wait, 6 of them haven't had a site survey. Like this one, the design isn't finalized yet. Or this one that you had the permits been submitted. Have they not been submitted? Oh, it got submitted, but it got pushed. You don't know. You just feel like you're in the dark. And what does that mean? Your customer's in the dark. And that creates a really negative cycle where maybe we're saying you're not going to get a lot of cancellations.
Yeah.
But now you are getting cancellations. And actually Power had the same issue for a little while from what I understood. And they've implemented systems to overcome those sort of that dark period where you're waiting a month for a solar permit, which a customer is like, well, they disappeared for a month. It's like, no, we didn't. We just waiting on the permit. Like, so
I think when that was so I had someone show me the back end. It was actually what I was most, it was the number one reason I was looking around for a new place for my installs. Was I wanted the cleanest, most transparent, most visible, most effective. Like, hey, I got this homeowner to sign documents. They're pumped about solar. What happens next? And like, who manages that? And the way Power does it now, and it's always getting better. I mean, we pay them every month to like do it. It's our battle pass, I call it. It's a live
like
service
that.
game.
That's good.
So I was talking about this at Power Day. It's so funny because I was like, who knows Fortnite? We're talking about battle pass, but that's how software works now, and gaming works that way. Is like, I'm going to pay you regularly to constantly give me new content. And that's what Power is. It's a live service game. And this is our battle pass. And like with that gets constant updates, new maps, new legendary skins. No, we want all that. But that's why I love, like, there are still some pieces in Power software wise that, like, they know they're working on. But the way it is now, the way I can manage, like, I can pull it up in the morning and see where everything is, hit up the project managers that need it. And it's like, I'm every single day, I'm perfectly aware of where every one of my projects is and why it's delayed, and if I need to do something to move it.
Did you have that type of visibility in previous companies?
No, it's why I left.
Okay.
Because and I get how hard that is. Like, it is, if your software isn't perfect for it, it's a nightmare. And Power just seems like they've got that part down.
Right. I don't know if it's a good example, but it's kind of reminds me of what Amazon did. They said, we're going to build this incredible back end company and software to be able to take these online orders and process it and scan a book off a shelf, and that book's going to get pulled from this place and stick in an envelope and go to your house. And I remember when they first came out, they were wildly in debt for like 10 years or something. And, now look at them. And I think, and then I think Power, the thing that I found most interesting about it was that they're not a solar company. They're a platform for solar companies. And that's kind of like a strange way to think about things, but it's really what it is. It's a place where you as an independent seller can sell a project, and at a good price too, because you have clarity on the pricing, which again is not something I've ever seen anywhere else. We actually have clarity. Oh, that's a steep roof, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive. for people not in solar, that's called an adder because it's got a steep roof. It's a
Yeah.
39. And you say, oh, we know it's going to cost this much extra to install on that steep roof. You have that clarity. And then an installer can now access that same information, view all the details about that project, and have someone else access that. So multiple people accessing the same information live. And that is very unique. And then the buying power too. The buying
I know. I
power.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen what other people are selling because, I'll have customers share proposals with me. And that's when I wish, and you'd hate to say this to customers, but you learn so much. Every time I win a deal, I should say like, hey, will you send me everything else you looked at?
Yeah.
Right. Wouldn't that be nice if like you could always see what they saw? And I should start doing that. Well, but when it does happen, you learn a lot. I had one customer that he had 4 or 5 proposals. I think he had 5. And he said like he sent them all to me. And this guy was I don't know what he was. He was very smart and like wanted to get super deep into like, let's go over every little thing.
Yeah. Analytical type, engineer type. Yeah.
Super analytical. And so we broke down all these proposals together, and it was like all about the equipment and warranties and pricing and financing options. And so you can learn a lot about what other people are offering that way. And yeah, some people are selling some weird panels out there.
Yeah.
Like stuff I've never heard of. So it is
agree.
nice to have like the procurement of power is really solid.
And I think that type of customer, as you said, that I can imagine you feeling energized after a customer like that.
Oh, well, and they appreciate, he only did that with me because he could tell that I was approaching as a consultant.
Yeah.
He kind of knew the vibe I'm trying to give off is like, hey, if there's something better, do it.
Right.
Like, I don't care that much. If you buy from me, let me talk, just do the best thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple people, you probably had it happen too before where they got a price from someone and you're like, I don't know, man. Like, do that. I've never seen anything like that.
Did you ever did you ever compete against Tesla when they were selling for like very, very inexpensive?
I tried.
Yeah.
That was undoable.
I had a few customers, and Tesla, for those who don't know, Tesla at one point, they literally just fired their entire sales staff. They fired all their solar consultants. They fired pretty much anybody who knew anything about solar in their company at one point in time. This was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And no, they just recently closed that division.
Mhm.
But they had this idea that they were going to have like these, you could order your solar online like you would ordering from Amazon. And the idea was, okay, we're going to get a 4 kW, or maybe you could get an 8. So you had incremental systems, as if homeowners know what that means, but that's how you're supposed to be able to order it. But every now and then I would have an 8 kW system for my customer, and then they'd have the Tesla proposal. And because
You're screwed.
And because Tesla had just cut their entire customer service and sales staff completely away. So like they didn't even care if like you had a problem. They just cut because they don't have.
No, there was no sale. They were buying it from an app, like
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
website.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were coming in like many thousands cheaper than what I could offer it. And they
With a battery.
Yeah. And then they would ask me, Brad, why should I go with you? Isn't this a very, and particularly if the panels, because I forget what panel, I think they were using Panasonic back then, which was okay. The HITs back
They're
then.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. The Panasonic HIT, which for those who don't know, Panasonic's factory was in Hanwha, China in 2020. So that doesn't exist anymore. No, sorry, not Hanwha, Wuhan. Is it, where was COVID from? Wuhan, China?
I'm not talking about COVID.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just saying where it came out
Yeah,
first.
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but their factory was in
Wuhan.
that city. Yeah, that's one of the reasons Panasonic.
Yeah, don't touch those panels.
Yeah. But anyways, it was a very comparative product to what I had. And I would just say, well, why should you not go Tesla? Honestly, I'd be like, honestly, if you can get it for that price, then go for it. I was like, there's
So I had two that I don't know who they ended up going with,
yeah.
but it was the same conversation where it was like, why they were so baffled. Why is this price so different? They'd
Mhm.
be like, hey, Mike, I like you, but this is coming in 15 grand cheaper with a battery. And there was
Mhm.
no response to it. It was like, go for it. And then the news came out they were shutting down, and
Yeah.
I threw that all over my Instagram, like, hooray.
Yeah.
Because I just experienced that
Are you still getting
just
people
before
giving you
that.
Tesla inquiries saying, are you still, sorry, are you still saying, do you have anybody still saying, oh, I'm comparing you to Tesla or Tesla? I
I
just had
haven't
someone just a couple days ago who was like,
they
yeah,
were
Tesla, they was telling me they got a Tesla quote and they wanted to see if how it compared. And I was like, Tesla's not even selling anymore.
Yeah, you could maybe still go on the website and do it. I don't know, but that may be what happened, but I haven't seen it recently. I think it's a really easy one. I have a list of like YouTube videos and reviews that if people are really excited about Tesla, I can say, hey, will you just watch this video real quick? And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
That was actually the tactic I would use. I would say, have you actually gone online and look at their reviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they bought Solar City, and for those who don't know, the year that they bought Solar City lost $900 million that year. Which, when I think about that number, like losing $900 million in a year, and someone decides that they're gonna. First of all, how do you keep the lights on? Second of all, how does someone now think that's a good idea to buy that company? Which, by the way, turned into a major lawsuit within Tesla shareholders because the shareholders were like, why did we just buy this really crappy company?
Right.
Which I don't even think is settled to this day. I think that's still ongoing,
Hmm.
that
I
lawsuit.
don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to see them go. Their
Yeah.
prices were funky.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that's happened. I mean, sort of all these big solar companies are dropping off. And I think that comes to what we were talking about. The model has changed in the solar industry. And the companies who are going to be able to weather the storm and be able, the ones who will succeed are the ones that have invested, I believe, technologically and have buying power. So
Yeah, no, so it's been cool to join like Power in a year, where like I joined in April, right? So since then we've had procurement issues like availability of panels,
yeah,
which I saw Power tackle that, and we've weathered it. And I've sold RECs or Q cells like anytime I want,
yeah,
or Mission. I sold Mission in Texas. Like we still were fine. This financing thing has been like out of control, right?
yeah,
We've got NEM coming. So it's like I've watched my own business and I've watched Power, whether like financing, procurement, and like actual, like the NEM stuff. And they just killed it. Like we're just going through it. Like it's
yeah,
not stopping us. No one is, it seems bad in the moment. And then you meet with the next homeowner and they're like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
yep, yep,
Like, but we see it as like, oh no, the price has gone up 10%. And then you remember they were saving 70 already. And I was like, okay, well, everything is fine. Like, just keep going. Just,
right.
oh no, we don't have like this panel anymore. Okay, now we got these. Keep going.
Well, I think that's frame of reference too, right? Like if your frame of reference is, I need, in the past, I was selling and saving this percent. So if I can't sell exactly that value proposition, then how am I possibly going to sell it? Then you look at it, it's like, well, this is the value proposition now. It's, but it's still way better than the alternative, which is sticking with the
Yeah.
utility and continuing to have utility rates go up every year,
Right.
renting electricity. So it
Yeah.
it's something that if you get stuck in your mind, and then the other thing, which was, I dealt with this over the last few years when there was a lot of availability issues, even things like sometimes circuit breakers or disconnect switch, meter pans, not being able to get a meter pan. And customers would say things like, oh man, I'm really, if I'd gone with this other company back then I wouldn't be dealing with this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm friends with so-and-so at that company. They're dealing with the same thing. Like
Yeah.
everybody's dealing. This whole idea, like the grass would have been greener on the other side, is just not true. And in fact, in many cases, like I know one company in particular here, which is one of the big brands in my area, and I know they're desperately hurting on cash flow. And
Mhm.
it's for some of the reasons. Like they were an LG uh, company selling LG panels. So when LG decided to just pull out of the market last summer, just like, oh, we're not going to sell panels anymore, they had a redesign. Like I think it was over 50% of their projects had to do a redesign. And then
Oh, wow.
on top of that, go find new panels to replace them with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
I'm glad I don't have to think about that.
yeah, yeah. All right. I want to do some hot takes with you, okay?
Let's do it.
All
What
right,
do you
hot
got?
takes. All right. First one, what is your number one suggestion you would give to a new solar consultant?
To do what?
Just someone's new, they're just getting into solar, they don't know anything, and they get
Here's what you
all
should do.
the lights are flashing in their eyes, they're deer in headlights. What is your number one suggestion for that guy or gal?
Don't do social media.
Don't do
Just
social
kidding.
media.
Don't do social media. Well, the question is like, especially in power. So this is like to someone in power that's new. You go to these trainings and it's like network. There's all these ideas of like, you know, go do this event, go get on LinkedIn and start doing this, go do this. And so many people fill their head with all these things they should probably do, and they never make it to tier 3.
Okay.
So my advice to new people is if you don't get to tier 3, and not just tier 3, that's 5 sales, by the way, on your own. So if you don't get to 5 to 10 sales on your own, there's no need to do any of this stuff. You're just wasting time. You're not going to really learn solar until you sell it to some people. And so all that other stuff is great. You have plenty of time to do it after you have established that you can do the first thing, which is find people that want solar. That might take several months, but I see a lot of people taking their eye off the ball because there's all these cool toys to play with, when you need a way to get in front of, if you're not having like 10 conversations a day, like we always say, 10 pitches a day, where you say like, hey, homeowner, you should get solar. If you're not doing that 10 times a day, then you'll just never make it.
Yeah.
So it's this game of survival where like, put your head down, have 10 conversations a day. If you have to knock doors to do it, great. Knocking doors is the freest thing in the world.
Okay.
So don't look at anything else until you're tier 3. That's my advice.
So it sounds like you're saying they got to focus on talking to customers, getting experience, learning their pitch, refining that pitch before they diversify or go out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't even refine. Refine after you've talked to 10 people that day.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Like the practice, the skill. Like I said, I'm still learning every day. Like the finding people to talk to is the most important.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Next question. You mentioned a few ideas, a few helpful hints for doing online virtual meetings. So what would you say are your top 3 must-haves for a virtual meeting?
Must-haves. Like if
Yeah,
you want to
must-haves,
win.
must-do.
Okay.
You got to do these things to have successful virtual meetings.
Okay. Practice. All the techie stuff. So I would say have the tools like a good mic, a camera, lighting or whatever. And then what's the other key? Oh, this is really important. So be ready. So if you're selling financing, have your loans figured out. So move this to the top. This is the most important thing. Ready?
Okay, we just moved it. Yep.
We're shifting this to the top.
Yeah, it's at the top.
So be ready to talk about the cash price,
Okay.
the lowest monthly amount, and the lowest dealer fee amount that you can find.
Okay.
So have those things ready and be ready to talk about, because you don't know what you're going to get. I had one today. He said, we know we're paying cash. Cool. I'm not going to go into financing. Or yeah, we're going to financing. We're going to do financing. And then they're like, what's the total loan amount? And you've got some dealer fee. And now they got a cash proposal from someone else. And they're like, why are you 30 grand more? So you have to be ready to talk about that. But where I find myself the most is in the middle, where I say, hey, look, now that you understand how these components work, a 20-year 6.99 is the right one to do. And here's why.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, that's a really good one, especially if they're not going to be in the home forever. So be ready to talk about cash, be ready to talk about lowest monthly, and be ready to talk about lowest total amount financed, which will be a high interest rate.
Okay. Yeah, those are 3 great points. I like that. That will take some preparation though for the solar consultant to know that information.
Well, it shifts. So like I would say every week, what I do every week, like my first proposal of the week, I'll go into a solar proposal and hunt for those options.
Yeah.
So what's the current lowest monthly, which right now it's the Sunlight 299.
Okay.
It was Mosaic for like so many months.
Okay.
And Mosaic got rid of 299, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago. Their lowest is 399. Dealer fees are the same on those.
Yeah.
I think Good Leap hasn't been in, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I'm happy to sell any of those loan providers, and I've sold them all, and I find their customer service all good across the board. I've been fine with all those. But every week, because it changes so often, I go check.
Okay.
So right now I'm doing 25-year 299 or the 15-year 649 or the 20-year 699. So I'm like, you got to go through and look for the best offer.
Okay. And that gives you the confidence when you tell the customer, this is the best and this is why, you can confidently say that because you've done the research.
Because I've went and looked at it. I literally, I'm choosing the loans I would use that week.
Okay.
Like if I was going to buy solar that week, these are the ones I would use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
the
like
one
that
I would,
statement. That's what I would use. I love that statement.
yeah. Some clients like to hear that.
Yeah.
They'll even say, once they trust you, they're like, well, what would you do? And I'd say, well, I would do the 299 because if you go from 299 to 699, that changes the tax credit quite a bit too. So it's like you get a lower monthly amount, but you get a higher tax credit.
Okay.
So there's a lot of factors in there. It's totally one of those things. That's why I say prepare to talk about that.
Okay.
And the more detailed your customer wants to get into that, then you're ready for it.
Okay.
Typically, I have the lowest monthly pulled up. And if that's where we go, I don't go past that. We just go with the 299 and just sign.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, that's I guess the like most complex part of the sale, but practice that, be ready to talk through that. If not, then get with your mentor and like figure that out. But that's important. You want to be like really the one advice. Presenting that really knows their stuff on that.
Yeah. All right. Next question. What is the biggest mistake you are seeing solar salespeople making?
Well, okay. I'm trying to think what would be a good one here. I would go back to the point I just mentioned, the first point I mentioned. So the biggest mistake they're making is lack of focus. because I'm in a world now. Power is a world where no one groups up and says like, guys, go do this.
Mm.
And those solar companies that train door knockers, that's all over like decades of experience on how to focus a group to do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is when you don't do that, you lose focus on like the one thing you need to do, which is talk to 10 people a day or more.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why the D2H companies can always do well, because they're good at focusing people on like the one thing that's most important.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to like the mistake that people are making is losing focus.
Okay.
They're trying to do too many things and like scale a business that doesn't exist. Like
Okay.
they're trying to scale something that they haven't started yet.
Right.
I didn't start doing Instagram or any sort of additional marketing until I was 6 months in solar.
Mm.
So I didn't even film. I did nothing but knock doors, like head down in the rain, 6 months of just that before I started doing anything else.
Yeah. You put your reps in. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
You learn solar by doing it and being in these meetings, and no one's handing you those meetings. You have to go earn them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question. Um, and this may actually be a little bit similar to the last question, so we'll see. But for those people who they've been in solar, they're not new, but let's say they're lingering. Some months they do a couple sales, some months they don't do quite as well, but they kind of can't get out of a funk to really make this something that they're successful and can pursue. What is your advice for those people to get them out of that funk?
But they know how to do it. They've been
They know how
around.
to do it. I think there's a lot of people who know how to sell. You know, they maybe sold fairly successfully at some point, but they're not quite able to kind of get over that hurdle
Yeah.
of being able to have a good, career, good income, good livelihood.
Yeah.
Like, what is your advice for those people who are kind of stuck in that, not quite getting there?
Yep. Okay. So this is what I do is like, you constantly innovate, like always be changing something, improving something about how you do what you do. Whether it's like, I remember okay, so this is my phone. See this yellow phone case?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of blurry.
Yeah.
But I remember buying that thinking like, I'm going to have this out when I'm door knocking, and it's going to be this weird yellow phone case, and it's just going to get someone's attention. So it's like every day you're thinking like, what's another little thing I can do?
Okay.
And so my advice would be like, maybe not to the level I do it or you do it, because you actually make video and talk, but making content, like doing the social media thing and branding yourself as like a solar pro. It's not just valuable in the content itself. Like, I have changed by doing all that. I've learned a lot by creating content, by putting myself out there and saying like, oh, I'm going to do a post on electric cars. And it would be like, okay, I guess I got to go learn like how much power they really need, because I don't know that. And so you can challenge yourself in ways to make you better at the job. You got to find ways to do that for yourself. So it's this constant iteration of like, how can I do this better, this better, this better? And that sort of, you remember when I said before, like I got off my sales call today and I was stoked and I had energy.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling that type of energy when you do this job, or when you do something better in this job, then yeah, I'd say quit.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, if you can't do something that makes you feel that way, if you're not feeling like when you come up with an idea to be better, if you don't feel like a rush of dopamine that's like, yeah, go do that, then go do something that makes you feel that way.
The yellow phone example reminds me, years ago, we were trying to think, how do we have a better system of door knocking? And we started printing our appointment sheets, because this was back in the day before we even had
Paper.
Google. This was all paper,
We
right?
use paper. So like 1985.
Yeah. So, by the way, when I started, one of the guys who trained me used to actually drive around with a copy machine in his trunk on his back seat that he had hooked up to the
Amazing.
cigarette lighter so he could copy electric bills. No joke.
Amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. But we used to have the paper. So how do you make paper better? We decided to buy bright pink paper that had like, I forget what we wrote at the top, but something that looked interesting on the top, like a picture. So you would walk up, you have this one sheet of bright pink paper that the customer could only get the paper if they, if they booked an appointment with you, because then you could write their name on it and give it to them,
But that's why I love like being an entrepreneur. It's like,
yeah.
what's another thing? You're excited about the idea of pink paper, and then you go do it.
Yes.
And it worked or not, but like that drove you, it gives you energy to do a new thing.
Yeah. I don't have any, I can't say I remember the results if the pink paper made a difference, but like you said, it
for
was
sure got
exciting.
you one deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was exciting to think you had the pink paper. Yeah.
Exactly. That's funny.
And we had a name for them too. I mean, we had a fancy name, like the pink sheet. I forget what we called it, but it was like, it had its own, it was its own thing within the company,
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, a couple more. To your forte in social media, what are the top one or two pieces of advice you would give to someone who's either just started or looking to start to build their online presence? What is your advice for those people?
I would be organized. So plan what you're going to do, and you don't have to post everything. So like I remember when I first started doing videos, I do 50 takes. And then I would just be like, I hate that video, and I wouldn't do anything. And so it's like anything else, it takes practice and it takes a plan. And so the most important thing is, like, on the weekend sometime, I plan out my whole week for social media. And then my advice is do the job, and that's the content. So like your content is the job, whatever's relevant, whatever's coming up. Like if I was going to create a post based on our conversation, I would just go back through and be like, okay, we talked about Tesla, we talked about PPAs, we talked about door knocking. And then I'd probably land on like the pink paper, and I'd make some post about like how stupid that is.
Yeah.
But that's where the ideas come from, is just do the job. And then just you're trying to convince people that, not convince them, but just show them that like you're passionate about this job. Like just do the job, love the job, and the content's there. You just need to sort of take time to pause and look for it. And then you got to find a way to make something out of
plan,
it.
be organized, and then allow your passion to show through those things.
Yeah. And copy people. I mean, that's what you do.
Copy people.
Yeah. Just copy good ideas. That's what we do.
Yeah. Okay. This is the one question out of everything I've been wanting to ask you today, Solar Mike, that I've wanted to ask you. And it's very pertinent, and I'll tell you only after you answer the question why it's so pertinent right now.
Okay.
What is your favorite dog breed?
Oh, come on. Okay. That's easy. I mean, he's right over there. Okay, but he's 14. So like I've been looking around.
Okay.
But I do have a yellow lab.
A yellow lab. Okay.
And I've had labs my whole life, and it's really hard to make an argument outside of that. You have to use shedding. If you're going to argue that labs aren't the best breed, you have to use the shedding. Otherwise you can't do it. So tell me why that's right or wrong.
Because it's a long story. I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong. I'll just tell you right now. I bribed is the right word. My wife, she actually had a pretty serious illness, and she had to have surgery, and it was very scary. And it was during COVID, the COVID stuff in the hospitals. So it was actually over a year ago, and she didn't want to go in, but she knew she had to. But I was trying to soften it for her, trying to figure out what can I do to help, So she had been asking me for over maybe a couple of years to get a dog. So
Okay.
finally, I said to her, and she was getting surgery on her leg, so it was going to be like a pretty a little bit of a long recovery process, what she was doing. And I said, okay, you do the surgery, honey. And when you're all better, we'll get whatever dog you want. So that was my bribe. And of course she said, well, I want 2 dogs because I don't just want to get one. I said, okay, we'll
Better.
get 2.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So I said, okay, we'll get 2 dogs. So now it's been a little while. And I asked her after, she said, I'm not quite ready. I do want to do it. Because it was funny. She was asking me, but now when she got better, she was like, well, I'm not ready right now, but we're going to do it. So last weekend, we decided, okay, we're going to get a dog or dogs. And we started talking about breeds. I said, I'm going to ask Solar Mike his opinion on dog breeds.
Oh,
so
I
it's
just called your breed. Oh,
yeah. So it's a very,
there's a lot of good ones out there.
It's a very self-serving question.
Yellow lab. I mean, you literally can't go wrong.
Yeah.
With a lab. They're very good, but they do shed.
Yeah.
And you will like them more than humans. So maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't want to like a dog more than humans, but that's what will happen. I'm weird. I want a Shiba Inu. That's like I want one of those Japanese fox dogs.
Big fluffy.
No, they're medium. They're like this.
Oh,
they're
okay,
like this big.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many good breeds out there.
So the lab over like a
golden
golden retriever, because it's a very similar in personality.
Okay, so the retriever has too much energy. They're super similar.
Okay.
But I like retrievers. I'd have one in a second. But labs have a lot of energy when they're young too. But you can have like a middle-aged retriever that can't stop thinking about retrieving. Like they will just they're pretty obsessed with chasing a ball. But they're great. They're a lot like a lab.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I met with my honey lady today, the lady who I buy honey from, the local honey farm. And she has an Australian Shepherd, which she says is the best dog ever. And she was very fierce the way she said it. So she was trying to convince
I bet
Australian
they're great,
Shepherd.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like any Shepherd. Now that I've been looking around and really because my lab's almost 14, I've realized that I could have any dog. I love so many different kinds of dogs that I've met a lot of them. So can't go wrong, man. Just get whatever.
Okay.
Get 2 though. I think that's good advice. Get 2.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the advice. And I thank you for this time today. I think this has been a very fruitful. We covered a lot of good topics. Fun. Yeah.